A compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
The Water Pledge. When the Turkic people want a man to take an oath, they bring a copper idol, prepare a bowl, where they pour some water and place this bowl between the idol's hands. After that, they put a piece of gold and a handful of millet into the bowl, bring a woman's baggy trousers and put them under the bowl. Then they say, if you break your oath, Allah will turn you into a woman, tear you into tiny pieces similar to this millet, and then you will turn yellow like this gold. After saying the oath, he drinks the water. Today we will talk about a water pledge, ancient traditions, and Glastonbury. It's an ancient English city where a Celtic settlement was established in the 3rd century BC. The legend has it that King Arthur was buried there too. Another legendary story is connected with this legendary figure. These events are the subject of a legend. When Joseph took down Jesus from the cross, he gathered his blood into the cup, which later became known as the Holy Grail. According to a legend, Joseph brought the cup to Glastonbury and buried it here at the foot of this hill. The Knights of the Round Table dedicated their lives to the search for the Holy Grail. It is the greatest medieval legend whose sources date back to the earliest epochs. According to a version, it even refers to another part of the world. The steppe generated history, or according to Toynbee, it was a driving belt of European history. In many respects, the water pledge tradition is connected with the Turkic people's religious beliefs, especially with Tengrism and belief in an afterlife. In the Kazakh language, there is the phrase "an suyin shu," which means drinking pledge water. Chapter 1. Nomadic Knights. These steppe nomads differ significantly from Celtic and British claimants wanting to be considered Arthur's ancestors. Their history began 1,500 years before his reign. The Scythians selected one out of every 100 of captives and then poured wine on his head, cut his throat, and placed a vessel under it. Then they put the vessel on a pedestal and poured the blood out of it onto a sword. It's prohibited to run, speak loudly, or use a phone here. Quietness and serenity reign behind the fence of the well-kept garden. People pay a few pounds and enter this place to find peace. According to the legend, it's the place where Joseph of Arimathea buried the Holy Grail, and then a spring appeared there. It's an interesting fact that its water changed the colors of stones to red. They say that the water in this spring has mystical qualities. It's quite hard and has a distinctive metallic taste. I don't know much about the mystical qualities of the water, but it's good for people suffering from anemia, which seems to be true.
Не знаю, как насчет мистических свойств, но вот то, что полезно пить эту воду людям, страдающим анемией, по-видимому, так и есть.
It's said that Jesus drank from the Grail at the Last Supper. It's considered that if a person drinks from it, they'll be in communion with the secrets of life, will be given absolution, eternal youth, and other benefits. They say that the chalice was made of gold. It's interesting that various peoples such as Celts, Scythians, and Turks really had legends about some kind of magic cup for many centuries. In some cases, various people remember their ancient myths up to the present time, when some of them, especially those from the steppe, are transforming because of cultural innovations. Some myths overlap with the others. The mysterious Middle Ages were rich in the Crusades, journeys to distant countries and search for magic artifacts. the hunt for relics associated with Jesus' life on Earth began in Europe in the 9th century. This gave color to the ancient legends. The first written record of the Holy Grail was made in the 12th century. French masters of chivalric romance, Chrétien de Troyes, wrote a series of stories about the British King Arthur and his knights. However, according to modern researchers, they might not even be British.
Artorius was a famous commander of Sarmatian cavalry.
In the 2nd century AD, the Sarmatians were in the Roman Empire's army. Present territory of Britain was a part of the Roman Empire then. Steppe motifs appeared in British legends together with the steppe warriors, and a shaman became Merlin the magician, whose cup became the prototype of the Holy Grail. Chapter 2. Drinking the Pledge. The Scythians enter all the friendship agreements accompanied by oaths in the following way. Wine mixed with the oath-taker's blood is poured into a large clay cup after a cut with a knife was made for it. Then a sword, axe, spear and arrows are put in the cup. After the ceremony, spells are said and the oath-takers and the most respected participants drink from this cup. Everything started with the Scythians. Herodotus said the same. A plough, yoke, axe and a bowl fell from the sky in ancient times. All of them were made of gold. The Scythians' ancestor, named Turkic, collected the gifts from heaven. According to another Persian, which was told by Herodotus too, the Scythians got the cup from Hercules, which was considered an ancestor of the Scythian royal dynasty too.
Знаете, единичные находки мы можем выявить.
You know, single finds can be made in vast areas such as Western Europe, South Asia, East Asia and the Far East. However, they can't serve as a source of information for us. They can't tell us what regions the Scythians reached because we're not always able to track the route which led them to these areas.
Путь, посредством которого они оказались там.
Let's continue with the information from the dark past. According to Herodotus, a Scythian warrior drank blood of the first enemy he killed. They often made cups from enemy skulls and edged them with gold. As a rule, only respected foes enjoyed this honor. However, the Scythians did not only drink blood from sacred cups. The tradition of worshipping water and special drinks was started at the time of the Saka. Haoma was a narcotic drink which affected people. Usually this drink was given to people who were approaching death.
Воздействовал на людей, которые уходили уже в предсмертный час, подавали этот напиток в основном.
The Sarmatians had the sword and the stone. They had the Holy Grail, except for the Sarmatians, the Grail was full of hashish.
Incidentally, severed heads of enemies were mentioned in the myth about King Arthur too. The character called Lady of the Cart brought a whole cart of human heads to the court of the king. However, vessels were not made from these skulls. Nevertheless, some scientists are confident that the story about the Holy Grail is connected with the Scythian and Sarmatian traditions. Howard Reed said the following: although the Holy Grail is not associated with a skull per se, it is certainly made of gold and connected with wine and blood. A story related to a ritual, vessel, and oaths of loyalty, influenced by the Turkic myths too. When taking an oath, they drank water. According to ancient Russian sources, they drank in rota, following their religion. My colleague, American researcher Peter Golden, wrote that taking an oath or drinking rotas had meant that only the Turkic peoples used the phrase.
Это значит принести клятву. Употребляли только тюркские народы.
There's another version according to which the Turkic people living in the area called Deshti Kipchak reached the British Peninsula during the period from the 4th to the 9th centuries AD. There's genetic research which is circumstantial, indicating this fact and establishing us to trace the origin of nations. There is another field of the ancient myth. Most likely, the person who took an oath mentioned the spirits of dead ancestors, addressed them, and called upon Tengri as witness. Let the one who will break the agreement be punished by the wrath of heaven. Let the sacred power of the oath attack his descendants, was said in the agreements reached by the Xiongnu and the Chinese in the 50s BC. Tengrikut, his advisors, Chinese ambassadors and commanders ascended Xiongnu mountain near the bank of the No River and sacrificed a white horse. Tengrikut took his sword and dipped its tip into wine. It was oath wine, which was poured into the cup made of the skull of the Rouran king, who'd been killed by Tengrikut Laoshan. The people who were there drank from that cup in turn. A water oath is equated with an oath to God. Violation of such an oath was punished severely.
Нарушение такой клятвы, очевидно, жестоко каралось.
This ancient tradition was mentioned in a later period in the 19th century, to be exact. The tradition of taking water oaths was followed in the steppe for a long time. Such oaths were taken during wedding ceremonies too. A mullah told them to stand in the center, put a chalice of water in front of them, covered it with linen, and said prayers. Then he asked the couple if they really wanted to get married and gave them water to drink 3 times. Finally, he offered water to everyone standing there. If there were a lot of them, he just sprinkled them with water. When 2 different clans enter an agreement and take an oath of loyalty, a bride and groom have to drink the water. We will say, "An suyin nishedi."
До сих пор у нас употребляют ансунчид. Они должны выпить вот эту воду.
Chapter 3. Guardians of the Steppe. The Holy Grail, covered with white brocade, was brought in the hall. Nobody could see it, or the woman who brought it. A sweet aroma filled the hall, and food and drinks, which were to each knight's taste, and this all appeared in front of them. Scientists think that the search for the Grail was connected directly with a fertility cult, and many myths emphasize the importance of women. They put up stone statues to their ancestors. A woman could be this ancestor too. There are a lot of statues of women. We can say that this phenomenon is typical of Kazakhstan. Out of 78 statues, there are 38 of women. Umay, the goddess of motherhood, was equal to Tengri. She descended to people holding a gold cup in her hand. There were children's souls in this cup. If a child got ill, Umay gave them the cup, and after drinking from it, the child recovered. It shows an association with the healing Holy Grail. The cup is not only a vessel containing souls, it's going back to its roots. There's a huge Thai kazan or cooking pot in Turkestan. On it is Suga Analgan Kazan, which means a water vessel, written in Arabic. The kazan has 32 emcheks. An emchek translates as a nipple. This kazan or water vessel symbolizes a nursing mother. People drink from it, which symbolizes that the mother gave them water. Stone idols having women's faces and holding cups in front of their stomachs were situated on the area from Mongolia to the Carpathians. They were protectors of motherhood and prosperity. A cup held by a balbal with a man's face is a symbol of strength and power. A balbal means stele. As a rule, a man holds a cup or a bird in his right hand. His left hand can lie on the hilt of a sword, akinaka, saber, or any other weapon. In addition, a cup is a symbol of cleansing before death and moving to the afterlife. According to one of the versions, stone statues were put up on graves. Holding a cup filled with water in your hands, they went to heaven, to Tengri, who judged them. Therefore, they needed to pacify the gods and appear cleansed in front of them.
Умиротворить, так сказать, богов и прийти к ним как бы очищенным.
Epilogue, a sign from above. Everything, including ancient legends, traditions, peoples, and epochs, is mixed in this cauldron, cup, or goblet. However, this fact is quite understandable. People have never remained on their own. There have always been some cross-cultural and intercontinental relationships between various peoples.
Континентальные, если хотите, вот связи между различными народами.
Eternal space above a yurt has a similar shape. There is one cup above the other. It is the unity of the eternal sky, earth, and people.